Well, wake up, everybody. Welcome into Redacted on this Tuesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores, and they seem not to be covering one of the biggest stories in the world right now, which is a major move by President Biden and NATO last night to strike inside the heart of Russia, leading us all into World War III, potentially a nuclear response from Russia. What is President Biden doing, or who are the deep state puppets who are currently running this administration? What are they up to, dragging us all into war? Congressman Keith Self, just a short time ago, is now drafting articles of impeachment for President Biden to invoke the 25th Amendment to get him out of office. We're going to be joined by the congressman in moments. This is a World War III red alert moment on here on the show.
Right. We're also going to talk about Trump's cabinet appointments and how investigations about them may, in fact, be made public. That's fine. If Matt Gaetz did something, we should all want to see it, but we should all want to see all investigations about our elected representatives. That's something that's being put forth on the House right now. Plus, the State Department using the National Endowment to act as the CIA and using classifications to keep it from the rest of us. That's not a fun story. We have all of that coming up. But first, we're going to talk about the dominoes that are currently falling that are leading us into war with Russia, a war the American people do not support.
So President Biden is trying to start World War III as we speak, before he leaves office, it seems, or at least the deep state puppets are actively trying to do this behind the scenes. Congress is now calling for impeachment under the 25th Amendment, hearing from a number of representatives calling for this right now. And Europe is bracing for nuclear war this afternoon. A few hours ago, of course, President Trump pledged to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, called for an immediate cessation of violence. And then within a few short hours after that, President Biden and NATO decided to launch long-range weapons inside of Russia for the very first time. And here was a front page of the New York Post: Ukraine reportedly using long-range missiles, first time to blow up Russian weapons facility as Putin issues a nuke warning to America. Here was the Wall Street Journal: Ukraine uses U.S.-provided long-range missiles in Russia for the first time. And it was almost immediate, like right after President Biden gave the green light to do this. Zelensky and NATO, with the coordination of NATO. Make no mistake, this is not just Ukraine doing this. This is NATO coordination and this attack. And now we have, of course, the move to bring President Biden and remove him from office. That's right, using Article 25, or the 25th Amendment, excuse me, and impeach President Biden. The congressman who's drafting that legislation right now, the articles of impeachment, is Congressman Keith Self from Texas, and he joins us now from Capitol Hill. Congressman, good to see you. Welcome to Redacted. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on this important issue.
Congressman, what prompted you to jump into this and to say we're going to draft articles of impeachment? This is a violation of the Constitution.
Well, I have drafted articles of impeachment. I've sent them to the lead shop. We have language back. But what I'm asking for before I drop these articles is I'm asking for a briefing, because we don't know what the president authorized. We don't know if he put any parameters on it. We don't know if he put any exceptions on it. So that's what I've asked for. And I have energized them with these draft impeachment articles. So I'm looking for them to tell me and to tell the American people, what did you approve? Because you're exactly right. We have outsourced our military decisions to Ukraine. They're not an ally. Yes, we have the agreement from 2014, but this could be an impeachable offense depending on what he said, what he authorized, and what Ukraine is doing.
And of course, Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, the authoritarian leader of Ukraine right now, who of course canceled elections, was very fast today to speak out on this and to say, look, we've got a lot more of these weapons. We are ready to use them, sort of gloating really about these U.S. made weapons and saying, threatening Russia, we're about to use more of these. So it is interesting. What did the Biden administration, what authorization did they give him? An unrelenting use of these missiles, or just the 6 that they fired last night?
Well, they have a whole lot more than 6, I guarantee you. But we need to know what he approved. And listen, the reason I am concerned about this is because I spent a whole year on a strategic nuclear watch in the European Command back during the Cold War. I studied the packages that would kill millions of people across the Soviet Union, and they were capable of doing that to us. We do not need to be outsourcing our decisions against a nuclear adversary, which Russia is. Now, I've got it. They don't have nearly our GDP, but they do have a nuclear force. And that's what concerns me. I don't think the people on the Hill are taking this nearly seriously enough. This could be a Cuban Missile Crisis moment, and that's what concerns me. That's why we've got to get to the bottom of exactly what the president authorized, and I am calling for a briefing. I apologize for the noise in the background. I'm in my Capitol office. They're calling us for votes very shortly. Thank you.
And I absolutely. I know you have to run down to the floor in just moments. Do you think that Speaker Johnson will bring these articles of impeachment to the floor for a vote?
Well, I am waiting to drop them until I get this briefing because I don't know enough now. This could indeed be an impeachable offense, but frankly, I don't know yet. That's why I'm asking for it. That's why I've drafted the articles, because I want to push them to tell the American people exactly what he did. Because again, I don't want to outsource our potential nuclear war decisions to Ukraine. And remember, President Biden is the only man that has the football next to him, and you have minutes to decide if Russia decides to launch an attack, not hours, minutes to decide if you're going to respond. This is very concerning to me.
Very concerning to all of us watching right now. We are a vehemently anti-war show here at Redacted, and the fact that the President of the United States, after President Trump wins the election, and 24 hours ago calls for an immediate cessation of hostilities in Ukraine, stopping this where it is right now. We want peace. And then a few short hours later, the lame duck president of the United States sanctions an attack inside of Russia. I mean, it seems almost like it rises to the level of treason.
Well, we don't want to make a miscalculation here. I think he's already made one by authorizing this. But miscalculations, when we're talking about nuclear war, are very serious. The consequences could be disastrous. And that's why I am so concerned, because everyone has an opinion about this. But frankly, Ukraine and Russia are the two at war. Once you release the dogs of war, you don't know where they're going. You don't know what Putin is thinking. And I was always taught in the military, in my 25-year career, you don't go with what their intentions or what they say. What are their capabilities? And if we make a serious miscalculation here, Ukraine drags us into World War III. Catastrophic. That's very catastrophic. We have 338 million Americans potentially in harm's way.
What is Europe saying about this? What would Europe's position? I mean, they seem to be they would be attacked first. And you have support from Germany, from France, from the UK. It seems like it's like a world gone mad right now, Congressman.
Well, frankly, we are hearing unconfirmed reports that both the UK and France are going to authorize their Storm Shadow missiles to be used by Ukraine. Very analogous to our ATACMS, our long-range missiles. So again, if Europe is leading us into World War III, we don't want to outsource that decision. We want to keep it to ourselves, which is why we must know what the president agreed to.
We'll get you out of here on this, Congressman, so you can get down to the floor for these votes. This would mean Kamala Harris, President of the United States. How does that sit with you?
Oh, it doesn't sit well at all. We do not want Kamala Harris, but I want the administration to admit what they did, and I want the House to take action because we need to be stronger. There's got to be an adult in the room on this conversation. And frankly, right now, I think it's got to be the House. It's not whoever's running the government. So I'm simply pushing people to be the adults in the room to say, this is not the direction we want to go.
All right. Congressman Keith Self, who serves on the Veterans Affairs and Foreign Affairs committees, bringing articles of impeachment, written them, just waiting for those to drop once we find out exactly what the president has authorized here. Congressman, thank you so much. Good luck with this. We appreciate you taking some time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your attention to it.
Thank you, Congressman. Unbelievable. And if you think about this for a moment, we don't know what, I mean, it's really remarkable what the congressman said. We don't know what he's exactly authorized here, because you have to go through Congress.
Right.
And you're dragging us into World War III without the authorization of Congress. It's stunning.
Well, because Congress no longer declares war, the president no longer declares war. The White House has not actually confirmed this. Zelensky himself said these are just media reports. It's the New York Times that published this with unnamed sources. He's absolutely right. We have nothing to go on other than the fact that bombs were fired, that we made and sent, that at the very beginning of this war, our president promised would not happen. That's all we really know.
Right. I mean, if you look at, here's what we do know, right? Let's take a look at the threat escalation ladder right now. So we start out with diplomatic pressure, right? But if this diplomatic pressure started phonily enough back in 2014 when the CIA placed a coup inside of Ukraine and tried to force their hand, right? That's how this all started. Although Jeffrey Sachs thinks it, started way back in like 1990. But if we want to just do modern history, 2014 is where this started with the CIA-backed coup in Ukraine. And the ethnic Russians that were living in the Donbass and Donetsk and those areas said, no, we don't want a United States government in Ukraine. And then, of course, the genocide unfolded. The attacks of those ethnic Russians in the Donbass, Donetsk, and all of those areas, right? Continual bombardment for 9 years. But no one paid attention to it, right? But Putin was, and Russia's ethnic Russians were asking for their help. Then economic sanctions, right? The United States places economic sanctions under Obama. Then covert operations unfold, the CIA in those areas. Then limited military action. Then regional conflict. Then full-scale war. And now what's next? That's where we are at the bottom of the tar pit. There is nuclear war.
Descended into the depths of Hades.
It's an absolutely hellish moment. Zelensky just moments ago, as I mentioned to the congressman, gloating about these new weapons, threatening Russia. We now have the long-range Neptune missile, and not just one, and now we have ATACMS, and we will use all of this, he said.
Вибачте, без зайвих деталей. У України є далекобійні можливості, у України є далекобійні дрони свого власного виробництва. У нас тепер є довгий Нептун, і не один. І тепер у нас є ATACMS. І ми все це будемо.
Oh, good. So we've got lots of them. And as the congressman said, he has way more than 6 of them to use. Putin, of course, responded a few weeks ago when asked, what would this mean for NATO and Russia relationship if the United States, NATO, launches long-range weapons into Russia?
Будет означать, что страны НАТО, США, европейские страны воюют с Россией.
Yeah, plain and simple. It's as cut and dry as possible.
Have you considered that possibly we may have saved ourselves by voting in Trump, because Putin knows that the administration that's authorizing this is on its way out, and that he'd say, well, we deflected these, we can fight them off for a little bit longer, and then we trust the next administration to stop it. But if we had ushered in the next Biden-Harris administration, he would know that this is going to keep going, and then he would escalate like that. Have you considered that?
I have considered that. I mean, I saw someone in the chat just a second ago saying Trump can't get in there soon enough.
Right.
Go ahead, Philip.
Well, I was gonna say, but that works. The de-escalation only works if they can actually take each of them out of the air. Once one of them lands, if one of these missiles lands in a urban center, then
all bets are off. Yeah,
if they some sort of an Iron Dome. We saw, of course, these 6 that were fired. 5 of them were shot down. 1 of them landed. It struck next to a military facility, I think so. Colonel McGregor is going to be joining us here in a little bit and give us some more insight into exactly how this unfolded. So, yeah, fortunately, there was no casualties in this. But this doesn't mean, of course, right now that Europe's not on high alert. So you have Sweden, Finland are all warning residents right now, get ready for war. The situation is serious.
And recall that Ukraine is not trained to use these weapons. They said so themselves many times. We've seen reports of how it goes when they go to NATO countries to receive training. They can't even read the manuals because they're in English. So not only should we pray that it hits no civilians on either side, but that the people using them, we pray that they don't use them, but at least we know they're not trained for this. They can hurt themselves as well.
Yeah, and I only hope that President Trump comes out with a big speech and demands that this stop right now. And, because who else is going to look presidential? We're not going to hear from President Biden in an Oval Office address tonight. Do you think we're going to hear from Biden?
No, he's wandering around the Amazon right now.
Right.
He's literally lost in Brazil.
So this is unbelievable. Everyone, Mo, must have received their CIA talking points this morning. Looks like the CIA sent out their memo for everyone to say the exact same thing. So you wonder where these deep state puppets are operating from. Everyone, I mean, they were almost like copy and pasted this stuff. So this is literally, here's Guy Verhofstadt. For 1,000 days, Ukraine has stood alone against Russia's imperialism, against Putin's mass murder, rape, child abductions. The brave Ukrainians fight on despite the West's feeble support. Stand with Ukraine. But all of them. Take a look. Here's another tweet. Adam Schiff. Today marks the 1,000th day of the war in Ukraine. 1,000 days of unimaginable, unconscionable suffering brought by a murderous dictator. Like they're all on the same page.
Zelensky?
They've all received the exact same talking points from the CIA. Ursula von der Leyen. In 2022, Russia thought its full-scale invasion would end in days. 1,000 days later, Ukraine bravely resists on the battlefield. And then this one's Emmanuel Macron says the exact same thing, but in French. Like, isn't that remarkable? It's they're all on the same page. They all got the memo from whatever deep state puppets are telling them what to say. It's really frightening, absolutely frightening. By the way, Polymarket, which absolutely predicted the presidential election.
Yes, they did.
So they came out today with, will a nuclear weapon detonate in 2024? And so by December 30th, 2024, now it's up. It's up 4% in the past few hours. So Polymarket, they raided the CEO's house. Did Polymarket. So anyway, we've got Colonel. So they I guess they don't like what he's up to at Polymarket. Anyway, we've got Colonel McGregor is going to join us here to get some sense of what's happening right now on the military side of all of this, and can the United States even, if they want to go to war with Russia, could we? We're going to ask Colonel McGregor that in just moments. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at American Financing, because if you're feeling overwhelmed with the upcoming holiday expenses, it's hard not to think about putting more stress on your already maxed out credit cards, which we all know is bad debt. But if you call our friends over at American Financing, what they can do is teach you to leverage the assets you've got now and trade bad debt for good debt. They can teach you to leverage the asset that you may have in your home equity, and they will do a free assessment of what you've got and what you owe. This is something wealthy people do all the time. They don't think, I have a house, I better not touch it. I have a 401k, I better not touch it. No, wealthy people leverage. They make themselves smarter one line item at a time, and a line item on your current financial sheet is your house. So let them teach you this and study it for yourself. You can go to americanfinancing.net/redacted. They are saving people, homeowners like you, an average of $800 a month. And if you start now, you could even get yourself out of some future mortgage payments. And so that could also give you some spending room for the holidays. So you can call them at 1-866-890-8434 or head on over to americanfinancing.net/redacted and tell them we sent you.
Some huge news on the Trump hush money. All these Trump is going to be sentenced. Trump is going to be,
he's a convicted felon.
He's a convicted felon.
Right.
Is he going to be sentenced? What's going to happen here? Huge update today.
Well, Alvin Bragg, who's the prosecutor who's went after him on this case, he's saying that he agrees to delay the sentencing of President Trump. But in his court filings, he says he absolutely does not want this case dismissed because the president's team filed a motion to dismiss. He says he will keep fighting it, but if you want to delay the sentencing, which was supposed to be next week, he's fine with that, and he's okay with it continuing to be delayed for now. Now, that doesn't mean the case may not be dismissed, because the Trump team has filed a motion to dismiss based on presidential immunity, and Judge Marchand is still considering that. He may read that document and say, yeah, I want out of this. I don't want to fight the president of the United States, and there's no way we can finish this by January 20th, stamped, done, off his desk. That's possible. What bothers me about this case is that presidential immunity, in my opinion, is the weakest argument, because it has to do with the journal entry that happened before he became president. I think the fact that they never named the crime that they were charging him with means that they violated his Sixth Amendment. I think that's absolutely clear if you followed this case. He had his Sixth Amendment, which is a right to a speedy trial and a right to know the crimes you're being charged with. He didn't even know up until the jury deliberation, what the actual crimes were. And that bothers me. Also, there was strong evidence of selective prosecution because Hillary Clinton was never charged for paying for the Steele dossier and putting the same type of journal entry in her campaign finances. So those two things are the things that I wish the case would be dismissed on. But instead, he's arguing presidential immunity because that worries me. That means the rest of us would have to run for president if these things happen to us, right? Because that would be the way he gets out of this obvious political trial. When the jury came in fact, Yale law professor and constitutional scholar Jed Rubenfeld put it this way. Watch.
Because going after criminally a former president of the United States and somebody who is running for president now, that's a very bad look for this country. It's an especially bad look when the folks bringing the case and the judge deciding it are members of the opposing political party. And it's an even worse look when the crime is so unclear that the state is hiding the ball about what the actual charges are right up through the trial and indeed into the trial. And even now, we don't know exactly what the jury found Trump guilty of. If you're going to go after a former president and somebody who's running for president now, the poll leading candidate, if you're a member of the other party and you're going to do that, you better have the goods. You better not be pursuing some novel legal theory where you have to hide the ball. It's not even clear what the charges are. That could be a very dangerous precedent for this country, a very bad and dangerous precedent.
Okay, so we don't know if Judge Marchand is going to grant this motion to dismiss. I have a feeling he probably will. And again, the thing that bothers me the most is that his civil rights were violated, but he would get out of the case based on presidential immunity rather than the civil rights. And that leaves the rest of us vulnerable. So we'll have to see. We don't know at this point, but at least we know what the appetite for a fight is that Alvin Bragg still has. And I would say it's probably, if it were like a video game, scale, I would say it's like here. He's probably here. He was once here. And now he's here.
Well, Matt Gaetz could be here soon as Attorney General of the United States. We shall see. A woman, though, claims that she saw Florida Representative Matt Gaetz having sex with a 17-year-old minor at a drug-filled party in 2017. Now, the woman's lawyer says that she testified to the House Ethics Committee. So this is now on the record with the House Ethics Committee. This is relevant as Gaetz will face opposition to his nomination, of course, as Attorney General under President Trump. Now, Gaetz has repeatedly said that he was set up by the feds. He even did an interview with Tucker and he talked about it and denied these allegations. In fact, a man is in prison now, right now, for trying to extort Gaetz' father, for $25 million in exchange for a guaranteed pardon. And when he talked about that on Tucker's show, Tucker's jaw dropped. He was like, what? And sure enough, the guy is in prison as a result of it because of this relationship to the ongoing lawfare against Gaetz. So Gaetz was investigated and never charged in this. He was investigated and never charged. So they're going to bring this all back up again?
Well, you would think, Clayton, that the FBI, having investigated something that they really wanted to charge, would have charged if they wanted to.
Right. You would think.
That's what I would think.
Especially the appetite to go after him.
Yeah.
Right?
So, we don't know, right? Because we haven't seen all of the inside documents, but you would think. Yeah. David, you want to say something? No. Oh. I just heard him moaning in the background. What are you doing?
He's doing yoga. Anyway,
Sorry,
the House investigation. The House investigation began in June, and a report was scheduled to be released this week. But now that Gaetz has resigned from Congress in order to become Attorney General, he resigned immediately after his AG nomination. That report may not be released. The committee will meet on Wednesday to discuss its release and possibly asking Congress to vote on releasing it to the public. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson last week said the panel should not release this report. I would like to see it. I want transparency. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. Let's see the report. Right? We shouldn't go into our corners. Right. Go into your political corners and be like, oh, no, because now it's a Republican, we shouldn't see the report. But for Trump or anybody else or, a Democrat, we should see you should see the reports.
There have been things that Matt Gaetz has done that has made me keen to see him in a position of power, such as putting on the floor a vote to withdraw troops from Syria and Somalia. I want those things. He's been the only person to speak out about that.
And Yemen.
Right. Is that true? I didn't.
Yeah, he wants us. He does not want us in Yemen, and Syria, and Somalia.
But anyhow, but yes, we absolutely should want to see if he's a scoundrel in other ways, or has abused his position, or has abused young girls. We should want to see that. But this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene said today. If we're going to start doing this, it cannot be partisan, because there have been investigations in other people. So she says, hey, for my Republican colleagues, if we're going to release ethics reports and rip apart our own, then put it all out there for the American people to see. Yes, all the ethics reports and claims, including the one I filed, all your sexual harassment and assault claims that were secretly settled, paying off victims and with taxpayer money. The entire Jeffrey Epstein files. Now you're talking, girl. Tapes, recordings, witness interviews, but not just those. There's more. Epstein wasn't and isn't the only asset. If we're going to dance, let's all dance in the sunlight. I'll make sure we do. To which I say yes. Do all of that. I want to see all of that.
I love it.
Yep.
Yes, into the sunlight, full transparency. Let's do it.
All right. Well, here's another way that liberals are planning not to cooperate with the next Trump administration: a shopping strike. So we already have the sex strike. We have the shave your head strike, to which actually I want to point out that people who are suffering from terminal illnesses are not taking this well. I've seen some trends online where people who have some kind of illness that makes it so they can't grow their hair, or cancer, or what have you, are saying, wait, you're trying to make yourself look ugly by shaving your head? That makes the rest of us feel awful. Talk about insensitive protest. Well, here's what they're doing now: the shopping strike. So here is a user with a liberal user who screams a lot of liberal things on X. I'm going to show you their avatar and you can look it up yourself. He's saying, look, Trump will not have a good economy because we won't let him. I myself plan on paying my bills and saving every penny beyond that. I will not contribute to this economy in any other way. I'll buy some clothes before he takes office, make sure I have everything I need for the next 4 years. I will not be eating out unless it is an emergency that cannot be avoided. I've already cut my cable long ago, but I will not support mainstream media on any app, no cable news of any kind. So I guess his plan is all frozen food because you can't have anything fresh, right? It's literally, don't spend a dime because I want the economy to tank. Which I guess is okay, considering this person probably has some kind of desk job that they will keep, right? But he doesn't care if he puts, let's say, grocery workers out of business, or, I don't know, gas stations.
It's the tolerant left. It's
right.
The tolerant
they absolutely
left, right?
don't care. He says, right, this is how we fight back. So if we're keeping track, again, no sex, no growing your hair, and no shopping of any kind. He even said, like, your family and friends are going to have to get no Christmas presents, no birthday presents, nothing. If you're going out for a birthday dinner to Chevy's, I'm not coming. Right? This party of joy is really, they're really showing us. They're showing us what joy looks like.
Pretty soon it'll be no electricity, no internet. We're going to not do any of that. They're going to become Amish. And then after like a year or so of being Amish, they're going to be like, wait a second. We're going to, we're really in alignment here. I think we're going to vote for Republicans.
They'll become Amish Trump voters.
Become Trump voters.
Can we just start mailing the Redacted show to all of the viewers? We'll just send it in the mail every day. Just drop a letter for you, and you can open it up and read our show.
On a VCR.
Yeah, on a VHS tape. We'll just send it out. Or a DVD, we'll just send it out.
I mean, I did try and think through this today because we went to Costco and I was like, okay, how much could I buy for 4 years for my family of 5? And then it's also laundry detergent. It's also dishwasher soap. It's body lotion. I think they also said liberals are stocking up on Plan B. I don't understand how that works. If you're on a sex strike, what do you need Plan B for? But you're still stocking up on that. Right, toilet paper. And if you get a hole in your underwear, you're going to have to sew that yourself. You can't go replace it. And so, okay, you do that. Go ahead and do that.
Oh, my God.
Sure.
These people. All right.
You could also just move to another economy and then live the life you want there. Like, you could just go.
Yeah, you could go to Canada.
I'm cool with that.
You could go up to Canada right now. I'm sure our Canadian friends would be happy about that. David Creighton up in Ottawa, he'd be like, no, please, please keep Please keep all these liberals out. We don't want to see them up here.
I absolutely want to see that person live stream it, though, like your daily life that you're eating frozen bananas and things like that. And then what if there's a hurricane and your freezer goes out? Then you're super effed.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And by the way, you brought up a great point.
This is not a good cause to do this.
What we were talking about earlier, it's like, so now, wait, all of these liberals, because Trump won, they're suddenly going to become preppers? Like they're going to become doomsday preppers, which is something that they, of course, maligned repeatedly. They like to mock all of us who like to prep and prepare for our make sure our families are protected. Whether we've got medicines in our cabinet, we've got food supplies, you've got ammunition to protect your family. Right now, suddenly they're doing it, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
that's right. Phil says the Amish gave the Trump over 100.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, sorry. You can read it. Just gonna say. Preppers are crazy, Clayton. Preppers are crazy. This is a protest. It's totally different.
This is now it's different. Crazy. This is the opposite of crazy.
Hey, coming up here in just a moment, we're going to be joined by Colonel Douglas McGregor, the great Colonel Douglas McGregor, of course, who served under President Trump in the Pentagon. So we're going to get his take on this move towards World War III, this move by President Biden and NATO to launch these long-range attacks inside of Russia. What will the Russian response be? What does it mean for Israel? What does it mean for the Middle East? The descending into chaos there, which is happening as we speak. So all of that we'll get to Colonel McGregor here in just a moment.
But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Green Chef, because Green Chef is a clean meal delivery program, and we do use it in our house. Green Chef is a great place for clean eating, so you can feel good about creating good for you meals with limited processed ingredients. So save yourself time and meal planning, shopping and prepping. It's everything you need to make fresh and delicious meals included. Some of these are my son's favorites, such as the filet that we were able to get. They have locally sourced shrimp, which if you read the book, The Secret of Groceries, you can get really nervous about buying shrimp. But every week you'll find menu options for every lifestyle, from Mediterranean, plant-based, gluten-free. In our house, we eat a lot of meat, so you can also get meat forward meals, and we're able to do that the kids really like. They're easy. They all come in one box. You have everything that you need, and it's fast as well. So you can fit it into your busy weeknight schedule when you're in between school and whatever practices or dance classes that your kids have, which that's our life. So it has to be fast. And I don't have a lot of time to be creative when it comes to meals. I just don't have that in me. So that's why Green Chef is a lifesaver. So right now you can use our promo code redacted50 or head on over to greenchef.com/redacted50. And if you do that, you'll get 50% off your first box plus 20% off for the next 2 months. So it's also really a savior, especially because you don't wander around the store just buying needless things. You only buy what you need with Green Chef. So again, use our promo code redacted50. Head on over to greenchef.com/redacted50.
Well, a few hours after President Trump pledged peace and an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine, he released this video message. NATO decided to ignore all of that and launched long-range weapons into Russia for the very first time. President Biden seems like he's trying to start World War III before he leaves office. Europe on edge today. What does all of this mean for Europe, the United States, and frankly, the Middle East? Let's ask Colonel Douglas McGregor, who's just penned a brand new piece for the American Conservative about all of this, and we wanted to invite him on. Colonel, unbelievable news this morning. I mean, last night we get Trump sending this video message out about peace. We need to end this right now, a cessation of hostilities. And then the Biden administration, or whoever's running the Biden administration, tells Ukraine, go ahead and launch these long-range missiles. What do you make of this morning?
You know, I was trying to think of a previous presidency where we'd seen something like this. But if you go back to 1968, when Richard Nixon was running for office, LBJ didn't do anything to harm Nixon. He did everything in his power to be as honest and forthright with Nixon as he could be, admitting that he was essentially unsure what to do next. And so this is really something radically new. The last time a president left office with an unmitigated disaster in the Oval Office behind him was Buchanan. And of course, he bequeathed to Abraham Lincoln the Civil War. You got to go back that far. But Buchanan was not mendacious. This is pure mendacity. This is malevolence. This is a deliberate attempt to subvert the election. We're unhappy. You're going to come in here and you think you're going to make peace. Well, we're going to fix you. To some extent, I've looked at this. It doesn't fit the definition of treason per se, but I think it's pretty damn close.
I mean, overnight, Polymarket, which accurately predicted the presidential election, and then the feds raided the CEO of Polymarket's home because he nailed it, showed that Trump was going to win. So this morning, we have Polymarket numbers showing that the use of a nuclear weapon in the year 2024 is likely. I mean, people are betting that, yes, we're going to see the use of a nuclear weapon in 2024. It's risen overnight thanks to this latest long-range attack. I mean, what are they playing at? I mean, it's like fun for these. It's like fun for these people.
Well, you're right. This is not a game. This is very serious stuff. And President Putin earlier today signed a new description of the use of nuclear weapons in Russian strategy. In other words, he's changed the approach, saying that effectively, if we're attacked in overwhelming numbers by conventional forces across our border, whether these are manned or unmanned systems like the ATACMS missiles or cruise missiles, we reserve the right to use essentially a nuclear weapon to strike the territory from which the attack was launched. Now, this was not an overwhelming attack. What Zelensky did was launch 6 ATACMS missiles, 5 of which the Russians successfully intercepted and shot down. The 6th struck near a location in Russia called Karachev, where there is a stockpile of weapons, but it didn't hit the stockpile. It simply started a small fire, which was quickly put out. Now, Vladimir Putin and the Russian state want to put an end to this war. There's no question about it. They would like it to end. And they know that President Trump is certainly willing to try and end it. So this gives them an incentive to exercise more restraint until he arrives. But the bad news is that I think this attack is probably going to trigger the use of weapons to destroy, frankly, what remains of Ukraine. We know that over the weekend, they already struck the power grid in Western Ukraine, which means that the people in the West, as well as the East, in the areas controlled by the Ukrainian government right now, are all going to freeze through the winter, which is a disaster. Of course, they just said they were going to cut off natural gas to Austria as well. The bottom line is this could trigger the thing that everybody says they don't want to happen, which is a major advance by Russian forces, which are already advancing as we speak here very, very rapidly, all the way to the Dnieper River. Because if you're in the Russian General Staff and you look at the map, you know that President Trump doesn't come into office until 21 January, and you have this maniac in Kiev who seems to be determined with his friends in Washington to start a war that could lead to nuclear exchange. Then you say, Mr. President, we strongly recommend we seize the river line, go all the way to the river and be done with it, and then potentially, if necessary, go into Kiev itself and eliminate this government. I think those things are now on the table, and this might well trigger it.
A total flattening of Ukraine.
Yes.
I mean, and people in Washington are playing this game right now, all in an effort to seemingly undermine President Trump. What will... I just can't wrap my head around the disconnect from these insane people. So they're trying to undermine President Trump. They're funneling additional billions of dollars of weapons into Ukraine at any possible last minute. Antony Blinken mentioning that the other day. They're going to do that right up until Trump takes office. We're going to funnel as much money as we can into that. But at the heart of it, Europeans are going to be killed. Americans could be killed. And I don't think they don't have any remorse about it. What do you think the response is going to be to European countries and to the United States?
Well, you bring up a very critical point. What happens now in Eastern Europe, specifically in Eastern Ukraine, does not stay there. This has an impact on Russia's view of its relations with us everywhere. Now, you've heard these reports about North Korean troops supposedly in Eastern Ukraine. It's a total lie. There's no evidence to support that. The people using satellites, watching carefully, see no one on the ground that resembles anybody from North Korea. The only North Korean troops in Russia are in Eastern Siberia. They are not west of the Urals, so there's none of that. This is being used as another excuse for escalating the war to the level that we are now, where we're using Army tactical missile systems with a 200-mile range. Now, this is going to lead to more trouble, but the trouble that we're going to see is what you're describing. If we find that any of these weapons are being launched from Germany or France or Great Britain, if we find that these weapons are coming from Germany, Great Britain, France, I think those countries could be in for an attack. They could actually, for the first time, see their countries at war, seriously at war with Russia. Remember, Vladimir Putin always said, if you persist in this and you attack the Russian homeland, you will be at war with Russia. Now, that's a very dangerous condition to be in right now because we can't stop anything. As I and others on your program have said in the past, we don't have the air and missile defense capability to stop these missiles. And that's not just hypersonic. We can only defend about 5 to 7% of NATO territory. And yet we're provoking the one state in the world today which has the capacity to fire thousands and thousands and thousands of missiles that could reach our homelands. They could obviously attack us as well. I don't think that's going to happen because that's not something that Vladimir Putin wants to do. And he does know that essentially Trump wants to end the war. So he's going to exercise restraint. But the people who are going to pay the most price right now are the Ukrainians. They're simply going to be annihilated.
And overnight, Finland is warning its residents to be ready for war, saying the situation is serious. And so here we go. You just wrote a new piece called Trump and the Storm of the Century, and really as it relates to the Middle East. But as you mentioned, what happens in Ukraine is not isolated to Ukraine. It has implications in the Middle East and what Trump does against Iran as well. I mean, can you unpack this for us?
Well, the thing is that right now we're making it clear to Russia that we see Russia as a permanent, unchanging enemy. In other words, there's no room for negotiation, no room for coexistence as far as Washington is concerned. Well, Russia has vital strategic interests in the Middle East. They are going to stand by Iran. President Putin has said this publicly. He said it's a priority for the Russian people to protect Iran. And he's also made it very clear to the Israelis not to attack his forces that are on the ground in Syria. Now, at the same time, you've got Russian foreign minister and Russian military leaders traveling all over the region. They have a huge presence in Iran, but that's not the only location where they are right now. They've effectively covered the whole region. And if anything, we're seeing an alliance of all the states in the region today, including Turkey, against Israel. Remember, the Turks have broken relations with Israel, which is something that, for whatever reason, nobody in Washington expected. And the Turks have made it very clear that they will turn on the Kurds, whom we are pushing to war with Turkey, in the hope that that will divert the Turks from taking any action against Israel. Well, that's absurd. They can go through the Kurds in a matter of weeks and annihilate everything in northern Iraq that threatens them, and they still have hundreds of thousands of troops left over that they can pour into Lebanon. And remember, they've got millions of refugees on their soil now. They've got another 1.5 million refugees coming out of Lebanon because the Israelis are now trying to do to Lebanon what they've done in Gaza. And there's every reason to expect the Israelis to do in Palestine, that is the West Bank, what they've done in Gaza. The Egyptians have now formally met with the Turks, the Egyptian military. They will cooperate. And Jordan is close to exploding. There are 11.2 million Palestinian Arabs living in Jordan who formerly lived in Israel. They are on the verge of exploding. So the entire region is a powder keg. And what we're doing in Russia signals to Russia that they have no incentive whatsoever to cooperate with us in the Middle East to prevent a wider regional war. On the contrary, they're now positioned to do enormous damage to us and Israel in the Middle East, just as they are positioned to do that in Eastern Europe. And again, and we've been over this before, Clayton, we are not in the position to wage a major regional war against anyone. Yeah, I don't know how many ATACMs we have left, but I doubt very seriously that there are many there. And if the French are dumb enough to provide cruise missiles to these people, then the French could be on the receiving end, as I pointed out earlier. And the Germans, who thus far have said they're not going to send anything more to Ukraine, have now suddenly said they're going to provide some kind of unmanned system support. These people are begging to be destroyed. Russia is not bluffing. The Russians are not buffaloing anybody. And people in Washington still don't get it. I don't know why, but they don't.
They're playing an incredibly dangerous game, and it seems like the Biden administration is purposefully trying to sink a Trump presidency, hand him a massive regional war or world war, to, as you mentioned, to buffalo his presidency. You've served under President Trump. As you've seen his cabinet come together and these pieces, obviously he doesn't take office for another 60 days. What do you think Trump's biggest blind spot is right now, heading into both a powder keg in the Middle East and Russia?
Under normal conditions, President Trump is someone who understands that war destroys presidencies. All he has to do is reflect on the 20th century. Everyone who inevitably went into war in some fashion or another came out of it destroyed and wounded. He doesn't want to end up like Lyndon Johnson. He doesn't want to end up like, frankly, W., who was at the beginning of the century, whose reputation is now permanently in the trash. I think he understands that. But on the other hand, the most important feature of his appointments is the unconditional support that all of these people have promised to Israel. That's where he will not give ground. And I don't think he may understand, but he may, who knows, that what's happening right now to the Russians in Eastern Europe is going to have an impact in the Middle East. And what we do has global implications. The message that Putin has tried to send routinely is that we can escalate horizontally. We can make life miserable for you in Africa. We can make life miserable for you in the Middle East. We can make life miserable for you in Asia. So why are you doing this? Why are the Russians back in force in Cuba? Why are there submarines now all over the Atlantic, and some of which are also in the Pacific, as well as in the Med and the Red Sea? In other words, they're prepared. They're prepared for a fight, even if that includes us, which is something that President Putin has striven to avoid, but they're prepared for it. The question that I keep asking is, are we? And as far as I can tell, in the Navy, the Air Force, it doesn't matter anywhere, we're not. And if you're not ready, why provoke? It's dangerous. It's ill-considered. You don't start a fight unless you think you've got a pretty damn good chance of winning it. People are living in fantasy world right now. In addition to Washington being Epstein Island plus, it's also Fantasy Island. They live in a world there where they think they are the masters of the universe. You know, there's nothing we can't do. We're the superpower. That's over. It's been over for 20 years. That's the message of BRICS. That's the message that the Russians, the Chinese, not just them, the Indians, the Brazilians, everyone is sending that message to us. Behave like a normal nation. Go back to behaving the way we used to behave, which is we wanted to do business with everybody. We didn't want to bomb them. So we got to get out of the bomb, and get back into business. And we'll find that we can be very successful and our economy will recover. But the path we're on right now is confrontation. And I think that President Trump, on one side from Biden, but yet on the other side, because of this obsession with Israel, and Israel is not defending itself. Israel's engaged in a major offensive war across the region against all of its enemies and expects us to destroy them for them. This is a catastrophe, in my judgment, strategically for us. And I think it's a catastrophe for everybody else. Nothing good is going to come out of this. Nothing good is going to come out of this for Israel.
Well, Colonel Douglas McGregor just penned a new piece. I encourage all of you to go and read it this afternoon, called Trump and the Storm of the Century. It's essential reading. We'll link it up today in the description of the live show today as well. So thank you so much, Colonel, for joining us. Thank you for your analysis and insight, as always. Fingers crossed here. Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you, Clayton.
Thanks, Colonel. Appreciate it. And I should mention, we also just penned, I co-authored a brand new piece on how Trump plans to go after and dismantle the deep state, because Who's pulling the levers right now? President Biden is out to lunch. He has dementia. Kamala Harris is out, doing whatever she's doing, or hanging out with Oprah or whatever, giving her some more money, or maybe trying to raise money. So which deep state swamp rats right now are actually orchestrating all of this? Who in the CIA? Who at the State Department is actually carrying all of this out? So I've co-authored a new report on this. If you want to read it, I think highly encourage you to read it. Went through a lot of analysis on who these people are and where they're hidden right now, and what this plan is to dismantle the deep state. So go grab it. Just go to our URL there. It's redacted.inc/Trump. Again, redacted.inc/Trump, a redacted exclusive report. Go check that out.
Well, the State Department is hiding its projects using the National Endowment for Democracy. That's the NED, and that is its cover. Now, this is not new necessarily. The NED has been acting as the CIA for decades. The New York Times, when they were still doing good reporting, reported this in the 1990s. They said the National Endowment for Democracy, created 15 years ago, does what the CIA does surreptitiously. So it's been doing this for decades. They described the NAD's role as influencing domestic politics abroad, doing in the open what the CIA has done. So they have now been caught trying to censor speech of Americans, trying to influence foreign governments, trying to overthrow foreign governments. And they do this with our tax dollars through money funneled through the State Department. If you need more proof, look who they just hired, the queen of regime change, Victoria Nuland. They hired her in September, which means they're hardly trying to hide that they're evil, because if you know what this lady's been up to, you know that she masterminded the war in Ukraine, masterminded regime change in 2014. So she earned the war that she wanted with Russia. She's got exactly what she wanted. And she cannot tell the truth about that war in Ukraine. I doubt she's even a human. I think she's a lying bot. But former State Department official Mike Benz put it this way: Victoria Nuland is now the CIA's #1 cutout, the organization I keep warning you about, the NED. Well, Benz's own watchdog foundation, the Foundation for Freedom Online, the FFO, found in this new report that the State Department is using the NED to conduct secret projects. They found that the NED has a $300 million annual budget from the State Department. So that's taxpayer funded from us. And since 2021, they have failed to publish any grant project information, violating the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act, meaning they do these secret things, government regime change, and they don't tell us about it, and it's funded through the State Department. Why can they do that? Because the State Department has decided to sort of let them borrow the classified status of sensitive. Here's how the FFO puts it. The endowment's management entered a legally questionable agreement where the Department of State grants officers to designate their entire federal appropriation as sensitive. So the State Department just says, well, let's say what you're doing is classified, it's sensitive, the American people can't know about it, so then we don't have to say what we're up to. Why is this allowed? Even FFO says it's probably not legal, but they're doing it. Did you know that when the U.S. was founded, only the State Department and the Department of Defense were allowed to use classification, because otherwise our government was founded on the principle of transparency, that the American people, we the people, get the right to know what happens with our government, what our government is up to, until 1951, when President Truman issued this Executive Order 10290. It set minimum standards for all government agencies to classify information as either secret, top secret, and confidential. When this happened in 1951, the press had an absolute fit over it. 250 members of the Associated Press protested. They were up in arms. New York Times, U.S. News and World Report, everywhere. But President Truman assured the public no actual government censorship would happen as a result of this. And here we are. So clearly there was no way he could assure the American people that the government would not abuse this power. They are. So now when the NED conducts its own censorship or propaganda campaigns, which we have caught them doing, we can't even watch them. We can't even know what they're up to. Here's something we covered last year in 2023. The Washington Examiner found that the NED had funneled at least $665,000, which came from the State Department, to the GDI, which is a British nonprofit group. And what did they do? They published a list ranking news organizations that either followed government propaganda or did not, and tried to pressure any retailers not to spend money in those outlets. In other words, comply with propaganda narrative, get a good rating, we let you make money. Report against government narrative, bad grade, we tell advertisers not to spend any money. Here's how the Washington Post reported that.
Well-funded disinformation tracking groups are part of a stealth operation blacklisting and trying to defund conservative media, likely costing news companies large sums in advertising dollars. A Washington Examiner investigation has found these companies compile a secret blacklist and feed them to ad companies, with the aim of defunding and shutting down disfavored speech. The Global Disinformation Indexes rates news outlets based on their alleged disinformation risk factor. Those they deem risky are placed on an exclusion list developed by GDI's advisory panel, which include Ben Nimmo, a global lead for threat intelligence at Facebook's parent company Meta, and journalist Ann Applebaum, who has said Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings are not, quote, interesting. The Washington Examiner is on GDI's exclusion list, but the Washington Examiner was never contacted by GDI or informed of how it failed to meet GDI's standards. GDI discloses in reports which outlets it identifies as the riskiest and worst offenders for peddling disinformation. The top 10 all skew to the right. Some on the list are Newsmax, The Federalist, The American Conservative, One America News, The Daily Wire, and Real Clear Politics. On the flip side, all the websites GDI ranks as the least riskiest lean left in their news coverage. These include NPR, the Associated Press, the New York Times, USA Today, and the Washington Post. GDI's disinformation tracking efforts have even resulted in opinion pieces being flagged. A Washington Examiner commentary article titled "The Less Gender-Bending Obsession is Tiresome and Absurd" was labeled as anti-LGBTQ+ disinformation. That same memo singled out Amazon for hosting ads in the Washington Examiner. Topics recently labeled disinformation relate to COVID-19, anti-vaccine content, mask protests, abortion, and alleged voter fraud during the 2020 presidential election. GDI is not alone among groups blacklisting certain websites while coordinating with ad companies. Another is DoubleVerify, a $4 billion publicly traded company that operates an inflammatory news index. The Washington Examiner has also been labeled as inflammatory by DoubleVerify. To read the full investigative piece, head to WashingtonExaminer.com. I'm Amy DeLaura for Washington Examiner.
Now, this is just a project they were doing to us to manipulate what information we saw, because the Washington Post did report the Hunter Biden laptop story, was not on board with the Russian propaganda that the government was against the war, trans ideology, the pandemic, what have you. So they got a bad grade. So this is the government trying to make sure that they collapse so that we don't see real reporting. Whereas the good ones, the Associated Press, the New York Times, those that are actually following government propaganda are getting good grades. So they are trying to censor information to the American people. We know they're doing this abroad as well, and trying to pervert information flow in order to exact regime change in places that they want. So these are just the projects we know about. What about the projects that we don't? So if you ask me, I would tell the new DOGE, the Department for Government Efficiency, run by Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, that the National Endowment is an NGO we absolutely should not be supporting. Let Victoria Nuland do this on her own dime, not taxpayer dime. Let me know what you think of this.
All right, we got more news to get to. We're going to hang out and do some of your super chats and talk about what's going on in the world. So thank you for your super chats and Rumble rants, and we'll read your chat room stuff here live, because we are live. Thank you guys, by the way, for subscribing every day to us and being a part of our community here at Redacted. We are independent media, so thank you guys for your support. We don't have the billions that Fox News or MSNBC or whatever has, so we have a small team, and we try to bring you a great show every day. So I thank you for subscribing, and it's free to subscribe, whether on Rumble or here on YouTube. Before we get to your super chats, the October 15th deadline has passed. Are you guys prepared for what's coming? Do you owe any back taxes? Are your tax returns still unfiled? Missed the deadline to file for an extension? Now that October 15th date is behind us, the IRS may be ramping up enforcement. You could face wage garnishments, frozen bank accounts, or even property seizures if you haven't taken action yet. But there's still hope. Tax Network USA has helped taxpayers save over $1 billion in tax debt and has filed over 10,000 tax returns. They specialize in helping people like you reduce their tax burdens, and they can help you as well. Don't wait any longer. Visit on the website right there on your screen. It's tnusa.com/redacted or call their 800 number, 1-800-958-1000 for a free consultation. Their experts will walk you through a few simple questions, see how much you can save. So act now before the IRS takes more aggressive steps. Take control today. Visit tnusa.com/redacted or call 1-800-958-1000. I should mention before, Philip, do you happen to have the store handy at all by any chance?
I do.
Because I saw some questions. People were like, hey, I wanted to get do you guys have Redacted merch? And I'm like, oh my God, we haven't talked about this in months. We haven't talked about this. And look, it's Black Friday stuff coming up here. Everyone's gearing up for buying something for their loved ones for the holiday. So if you've got any family, friends that are, fans of the show, just go to redactedstore.com. We've got our No Farmers, No Food t-shirts. We've got our great hoodies, stickers, I Will Not Comply stickers, all sorts of mugs and different hoodies like the Redacted Demand Government Transparency t-shirts. We've got our hats and great stuff right there. Friends Don't Let Friends Watch Mainstream Media mugs as well. And there's Natalie's favorite phrase, the non-pacifist peace extremist.
Yep.
I love this new shirt. Our new shirts launched. Our Conspiracy Knower shirts are available as well.
That was mine too. As long as
I'm wearing mine.
We're taking credit for catchy phrases.
The got oil one was mine.
Oh, it looks so good.
There
he's a conspiracy knower.
That's right. I love when people call us conspiracy theorists because, all conspiracy theories are just 6-month spoiler alerts for what's to come in 6 months. So, yes, sad but true. And the mainstream media doesn't cover it. So, all right, let's get to some of your Rumble rants first. Oh, let me see. Somebody says they use their Redacted mug every day. Angela Caldo says, I use my Redacted coffee mug every day. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Thank you, guys.
All right, David, do we have some Rumble rants to start?
So we got our Rumble rants. There was no R rants last time, so here, shout out to Homeboy's Tang Dynasty for adopting paper money around 600 to 900 AD. P.S. Europe didn't widely use paper till the 11th century.
Yeah, and then it's illegal under the United States Constitution. Paper currency is not allowed under the United States Constitution. It's a perversion of our currency. We're supposed to have gold and silver in the United States, but we don't, and it's illegal because of the Fed. So that's why we have paper currency in the U.S.
Interesting little tidbit about the Chinese currency too is they had little markings for it actually was traded for value of something. So it was like if you traded it for silver, it was actually marked on each individual bill was what it represented. So it was actually more representative of goods as opposed to just a paper currency in general, which I thought was interesting.
Now, cool.
That's interesting. Yeah, now our paper currency is backed by nothing. And even our pennies are not copper anymore. Remember when they used to be copper? I don't even think they're zinc anymore. I don't even know what they are these days. Anyway, go ahead, David.
From G. Fontes, the idea to conform and follow foolish and even cultish behavior seems destined to end them up either homeless, hungry, and unwashed, or in WEF 15-minute cities safe from President Trump and his supporters.
Oh, I think he's talking about the shopping strike.
Yes,
the people who want to tank the economy. Yeah. I mean, sure. I'll watch it and see how that goes.
Theta Moon, this is all scare tactics to try and knock the collective human race off course from the grips of old world draconian rule and energetic spiritual war. The puppets we see are just playing their roles.
Yeah. I think she's talking about the nuclear war.
The National Endowment for Democracy, formed in 1983 to continue the CIA's newly outfitted activities. Board members included Mitt Romney, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and Dick Durbin.
I did not know that. I wonder if there's a book I can read about the founding of the NED, because, what a demonic organization. Thank you for that.
But no, they just support arts, right?
Right.
And Sesame Street.
I mean, what they say is they support democracy, but you know how that goes. So
Right.
that's a 1984 type.
Well, that's what Democrats ran on this entire time under Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
We're here to preserve democracy.
Say that in your own country, right? But it's more offensive when the way that we try to promote democracy abroad. So
Yeah.
Well, and for the Democrats, it's like we're going to thwart democracy to protect it.
yeah, right.
Yeah, we're gonna get rid of put in place censorship, get rid of gun laws, everything else.
Actively
Right,
try
go
to
ahead.
get third parties off the ballots in some states with lawfare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, all right, that was all the Rumble rants. So I'm going to start putting them on screen.
All right.
Thank you. From AJ Monty, thank you for staying on top of this story. I think that had to do with I saw that comment during the National Endowment, or maybe that was the nuclear war. Either
I think
one.
AJ was talking about during
Nuclear war?
I think we were talking about nuclear war.
Okay.
But thank you, AJ.
Thank you for saying that. From Michelle Schwab. I don't know why all of a sudden I spoke
Schwab.
French. Biden and his handlers apparently would rather rule over ashes than give up power. Moreover, I'm wondering if they're trying to ambush him into violating the Logan Act, which frankly should not apply to the president. Ambush him. Yeah. And then what? Put Kamala Harris in for just a few days? I don't know. Thank you for that.
Aaron, thank you for the $20 super chat. Thank you. Is that from Parks and Rec? Is that? Yeah. Lola Renee. Thank you for telling the truth and all the work that you do. Thank you, Lola, for being a subscriber and being here. We wouldn't be able to do this show without you. So thank you guys so much. And by the way, when we're out in public and you guys come up to us and say hi, that you're Redacted fans, I just want to say thank you guys. So we really appreciate it. Don't be shy about it. Sometimes people are like, I didn't want to say anything to you guys. We watched the show and just please come up and say hello. We always love saying hi and getting to talk with you. And
plus our kids get excited that we're YouTubers. It gives us extra credit with our teenagers.
Stoops the Cat says, don't research the nuke hoax.
Oh, that's cool.
All right.
Stoops the Cat said, don't research the nuke hoax.
Echo.
Is that a
Echo.
Well, David was talking when this person gave us $5.
I know.
We deserve to not have their super chat interrupted.
Yeah, Stoops the Cat, I'm sorry for them talking over me. Thank you for your $5 super chat.
Well, I'm wondering if that's like a don't throw me into that briar patch.
It is. It's like, don't
look at that. Okay.
Yeah, don't even study it.
All right. $5 from Sailing Prepper Dark Secrets. With everything going on, no vacation for YouTube next week. We know when you are going on vacation. Yeah, I said that yesterday. We'll be out for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we'll be away for Thanksgiving, spending some time with the kids and stuff. And yeah, I know. It seems like every time we take a little time off, it's like, my God. All right. All right, go ahead. Next one.
From Aaron, it's called liberal brain rot. That's a thing. Yeah, that person's going to be living in their house on frozen pizza.
Latterix says, mainstream media made me feel insane. Redacted forever. Yeah, mainstream media, it's weird when you flip on MSNBC just for a few minutes, or you flip on any of the mainstream media, you feel like you're in a whole other world.
Yeah,
it's really like an alternative universe,
Right. Well, I feel like, oh my God, you're really worked up about that. If I believed you, I would be too, but now I only see you as the Matrix, zeros and ones.
Yeah.
So you have no power over me. To the Goblin King. Okay, €5 from Aaron XO. What the Russians will do, they'll give the newest anti-ship missiles to the Houthi in Iran, which will then sink an aircraft carrier. Oh, shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is where this goes, right? And Colonel McGregor was right to say that this is not just isolated to Ukraine. It's about Iran. It's about the Middle East. It's not just isolated there in Eastern Europe. Thank you, Ronak. So, Stephen Johnson, if you look at it from the depopulation perspective, politics makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. They certainly don't want us to live.
Rob, thank you for your $5 super chat. I believe that in the assassination attempt on President-elect Trump was to keep this war in Ukraine to continue. That's very astute of you, Rob. Yes, absolutely. Follow the money, right? Why is the deep state scared that President Trump is coming into office? Because he's going to end their money train in Ukraine and the money laundering operation that's been funneled there. So, yeah, absolutely. They don't want this. Thank you, Rob.
All right, $5 from Viv B. Some lefties are chugging glassfuls of seed oil to protest Robbie and his plans for the HHS. I love it when the trash takes itself off. Yeah, for Bobby. Yeah, RFK Jr. I have seen those online as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was actually a one person, and they were doing some test of the oil or whatever. It's not happening in mass. So.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Well, we don't know that, but we haven't seen it happen.
So all these lefties are like, yeah, I saw on you. Yeah, this is how we're going to protest Robert F. Kennedy. We're going to just start drinking seed oils, which linked to cancers, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to just start doing that. That really makes a lot of sense.
When I was a lefty, we really wanted pesticides out of the food.
We still do.
That was a leftist tenet.
Oh, back in the day,
right?
Like
cloth diapers and everything earthy and crunchy, and now they're like, we need our vaccines and our pesticides. Shut up.
It's crazy. Yeah, you think about back to Silent Spring? The famous book about DDT and what it was doing to bald eagle population and everything.
There was a Democratic mayor recently that said, we will keep fluoride in our water. And I wrote her back on X and I said, based on what research? I would like to know why you think that that's great, because a judge has recently ruled it as a neurotoxin and there's plenty of research. So Democrats want fluoride in water now? What the?
They want the unhealthiest stuff. They want war. What the hell happened to the Democratic Party? The party of peace, the party of keep government out of our business.
Know what happened to this? So yeah, it's brain rot indeed. All right, Herc 101. Thank you for that. 27 Canadian dollars. Thanks, Redacted. Thank you to you.
Plevnet Band says it's sure a shame there aren't any independent rock bands out here with epic hooks about all this corruption. Yes. Okay, so I'm sure Plevnet Band is a band that probably has some epic hooks about all of this corruption.
Let's check it out.
Thanks, Plevnet.
All right.
PLVnet.
$2 from Bobby O. Y'all don't sound like Bolton. Putin's sympathizers.
Yeah, we're not like Ambassador Bolton. I don't know if this person, Bobby O, did you accidentally stumble into this chat room here? Because no, I think he's being facetious.
Right. We don't want to sound like Bolton.
No, we are not Ambassador Bolton. Yeah. Or what's the singer name? Bolton.
Michael Bolton.
Michael Bolton.
John or Michael.
Yeah, we're not like Michael Bolton, the singer. We're not like him either, I would think.
There's reports that... Yes, right. I celebrate his whole collection. There are reports that maybe the Kamala Harris campaign paid Bon Jovi for that song.
Awful song.
Or perhaps for the production of it. Maybe he wrote the song. I don't know if you saw Bon Jovi's song about Kamala Harris. It was particularly harmful.
It's awful. It's one of the worst songs I've ever heard.
It's bad. It's really bad. I wonder if, in fact, that was financed at all with any donations, campaign donations, because...
You got to think it was. You got to think. With the money going to Oprah and all these other celebs.
He was mentioned in some of the reporting, so I'm going to have to search for the finance donations and see if there's... I don't know what his company would be paid or whatever, but... Why would you pay for that? Yeah, if you're going to choose anybody to do a song for you.
That campaign, you could tell, was just living on a prayer with that move, right?
You just couldn't help yourself.
Couldn't help myself. Go ahead.
Could you imagine burning through $1 billion as fast as she did and having
in 15 weeks.
$20 million
saw Richard
in debt?
I think I saw a Richard Pryor movie, Brewster's Billions, in the 1980s, where he gets $1 billion, and the only way he gets to keep it is if he burns through it all in a 24-hour time period.
Is it $1 billion?
It was $1 billion. The movie was called Brewster's Billions. Isn't it Brewster's Billions?
Millions. I think it's like 100 million.
You're making up for the current economy, Clayton, because it probably
with inflation it is.
Brewster Billions.
You're thinking of Austin Powers. You're talking about things about the president.
Oh my God!
Powers.
You're right. It was. Isn't this amazing? It was Brewster's Millions. You're right. Isn't that funny? The inflation. Oh my God.
Right, because today I could buy one car for $1 million.
He had to get rid of $300 million. He had to spend it. He couldn't just give it away. He had to spend $300 million, and he's not allowed to own any assets. That's crazy.
He could have ran for president and ended with negative $500 million. What would that have done to their math?
Oh, I'm wrong. I'm wrong about the premise. A minor league baseball player, he had to spend $30 million in 30 days in order to inherit $300 million. So he had to spend $30 million. That's nothing these days. I mean, Kamala Harris spent that. She could spend that in an afternoon.
Well, she spent $100 million per week. Okay, did we miss the one before us, David? I'm sorry. Did we? It
was Bobby. I think we read that one.
Yeah, there was a second one. He just said, "No, I love you, but I listen to both sides."
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to all sides. Hopefully, we're not on a side.
No, so we are definitely not. We are anti-war. Ambassador Bolton is a warmonger, and we're not like Putin sympathizers at all. We are vehemently anti-people dying.
Yeah, I ran into someone who listened to our show recently. And they're like, "Oh, you guys are on the right." I'm like, "No." But I can see why you might say that. We're independent. So
we're
anyhow,
on the right side of history. So.
Yes. Yeah. All right. £2 from Gerbs92. Russia invades Ukraine. It's bad, but how about Palestine? Yeah, absolutely. We have been covering that at length in the newsletter as well. $20 from Ferdy Fox. Thank you so much.
And that's it.
And that's it. Thank you so much.
All right.
We will be back here tomorrow, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Redacted.
We have a daily newsletter. You should all subscribe to it. It's totally free. Just go to redacted.inc. It's delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. Natalie works really hard on writing it. She writes it every morning. I edit it, adds a little bit of color and commentary sometimes, but it's delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. We cover about five or six of the big stories of the day, some things you might have missed while you were sleeping, some of the market news, what's going on with gold and silver and all of that. And you can read it in about 5 or 10 minutes over your cup of coffee. Anyway, go to redacted.inc is how you sign up and start your day off right. Thank you, guys. We'll be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great night, everyone. Much love to all of you.